my faith is stronger than it's ever been before. And I will forever keep my eyes.
Hello, world. You just tuned in to Brother to Brother. My name is Jeremy Williams. This is my brother, Chris Williams, the same brother from my brother from the same mother. And we're excited about this show. Information's at the bottom of the screen. We want you guys to come and contact us and maybe even be a part of our next recording process. When we're in your town, we travel a lot to churches, the schools. When we're in your town, we love to see your smiling face, so get in contact with us. Here on Brother to Brother, we are a social awareness show. We raise and elevate your level of thinking so that you can be the person that God has called you to be. Chris, we are here in the beautiful city of Beaumont, Texas.
Absolutely.
They call Beaumont the right side of Texas. So we're here in the beautiful city of Beaumont in this beautiful studio here at Faith Christian Center where Pastor Carlton Sharp is the pastor. And Chris, we cannot speak to the world without speaking to where we are in this area. Southeast Texas is where we're from. So there are a lot of opportunities. We just had one of the most traumatic natural disasters in a long time, maybe ever, to hit this area in Hurricane Harvey, the flood, the devastations, 2 hurricanes back to back, actually. And so a lot has changed in Southeast Texas, not only geographically, but also economically, spiritually, socially. And we just want to bring some light to some of those things and raise your awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important for us to talk about it because I as a young man, you know, we're middle in our age, and you know, we lost some things and we gained some things, and we know a lot of people that were in the same position. So it's important. It's important to say and talk to that. And I remember when we were anticipating Harvey coming in, you know, in this time we want to talk about that whole process, about how we sat back as a community of people and we looked at this screen and there's this big red monster, it seemed like.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
I remember.
You know, in the Gulf, and it's churning, and you know, we're listening to the forecast and we're trying our best, you know, to try to brace ourselves and get ready. And I can remember the first night that the rain started, sitting in my garage. And we were talking on the phone, kind of talking through most of that, and sitting out there in the garage, man, and listening and hearing the rain and hearing the, with no idea what was awaiting us.
And it felt different.
It felt different. The environment was different. The air was different. And we sat there, man, with, I could see it as clear in my mind. And I'm sure everybody has that kind of story to remember. Where were you? What were you doing when the rain started coming? And just sitting there in my mindset, not fearfully, but in anticipation that we don't know what's in front of us. We don't know. It was one thing to see it on the screen, but then it was another thing to have at that same moment, you know what I'm saying, something coming in. And it did something. And so, you know, going into that, we can talk about the anticipation of life-changing events. And one of the things that I've gotten out of this moment in time, and we you know, we're going to talk both tangibly and metaphorically about a lot of this stuff, is, you know, in life sometimes we have to be trained to anticipate certain things. Everything can't be so random. You know, life does have an aspect of randomness to it. But I've found that in life, it's good. Preparation,
That is.
you know, is the key, you know, to being ready and to being, at least having some wherewithal about yourself that something may change in your life. And so Harvey presented this tremendous change in our area from the routine.
I see.
You know, it presented this tremendous change in our community, and in some ways how it physically actually looked. Man, I mean, the driving down streets in Beaumont and Port Arthur and some of the outlying towns, Bevel Oaks and even Nome, and Greater Steel, we know what Houston went through.
Yeah.
But in areas and pockets of our community that didn't get the front page of the paper.
That's right.
You know, but we drive through them every day. We do business in them. We have family and friends in those. And that change, man, So, Harvey kind of brings this discussion about change, about preparation. I just want to dive in that a little bit and kind of come up with something.
Well, as I move about the city and the area, Chris, I'm seeing frustration. There was a lot of frustration on a lot of different levels. Frustration came to a lot of us because we weren't prepared. A lot of people lived in, and they didn't really talk about this on the news, but I'm glad you're bringing this up because a lot of people lived in what's called 100-year or even 300-year floodplain, which means that in 100 years it hadn't flooded in these neighborhoods and communities, and the infrastructure was built so that it would never flood. The water, there was so much rain and drainage water that it caused communities to flood, and people weren't insured. The insurance did not cover their property that in a no flood zone.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Even though it was an act of God, which sent a lot of people to FEMA, which sent a lot of people to Red Cross, it sent a lot of people to the SBA, and then when you have 250,000 people trying to get into a FEMA office and everybody has a story, everybody is trying to explain their situation, and you're not getting answers, or you're not getting the adequate help that you need. There's frustration in there. I don't really know how to deal with that as I go about. I'm asking the Lord to help me. Maybe you can give some insight on it.
Well, I believe, man, in all honest conversation, there's just some things that we don't know how to handle. You know what I'm saying? And it takes the Lord. It really takes God to do something in our minds and in our hearts. Because the deal is that a lot of people in this situation, they're not going to get answers. They're going to have to find out how to get it done by themselves.
That is.
And that's a very sobering thought, because we can't use this platform to propagate for rebuttal, against every system, because all of these systems are overloaded. I mean, if we're going to focus on Beaumont, but just look, man, in the preceding or the succeeding weeks after Harvey, and we had 3 hurricanes. 2 of them which made landfall in Florida, in the area, the inner Gulf area, and up the Atlantic coast, and they were devastated. And they took a lot of resources, and so though there's this idea that there's enough for everybody, in some cases there's just not enough. You know what I'm saying? There's just not enough to spread around to adequately meet the needs of everyone. And this is one of those times and points in life where you really do have to lean in, and my God shall supply all of my need according to his riches and glory, and the diversity of his supplying of those needs. And there's a lot of resolution that has to go on. And so it creates this environment of hopelessness. But in every environment of hopelessness, there is a thread, a silver lining, a possibility. There is, without itself, and I've heard this, I think it was a quote from John F. Kennedy back in the day. He said, within every crisis, there's opportunity.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Within every breaking down of a system, there's an opportunity to build a new one up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With every dilapidation, you know what I'm saying, there's opportunity for new construction.
Right.
And so I just, feel a way from being in the city, from being a part of a system in a community of people that have been affected. We were handing out water and giving resources and being a part of this chain of community involvement and engagement and touching people and listening to people. So, it's a sobering conversation because we're higher energy young men.
Yeah.
But I think this allows us to really soberly look at, what are we going to do? What can we do? What can we say?
Which brings me to that point. My business that I started, EnviroCare, came out of the aftermath of Hurricane Rita. As I got involved in the humanitarian aid as well as the cleanup process, I discovered my business. And that's when my business was birthed. So now that we're frustrated, Chris, let's move to what are some of the opportunities with you working with Lamar Institute of Technology, also with me being a youth pastor at Paradise Baptist Church, you being a minister there of the young adults and a musician, we had an opportunity to work through a church structure to reach a lot of people, as well as some other nonprofit entities like Red Cross. What are some of the opportunities that you saw that people can maybe tap into, or is the silver lining, as you say?
Well, one of the things that I saw about the rain and saw about Harvey is that it exposed a lot of things that have been brooding. No more, better example, I feel that once a lot of people, their houses, were inundated with water, and people had to go into these places. And you kind of find out how people live and what they do and what they have, man. But at the same time, it began to expose some gaps in our communities and opportunities for people to fill those gaps. I really feel that as I'm at a school here in Lamar Institute of Technology as a recruiter, I'm finding that we have to get ahead of doing the things that place us in pretty good positions in life. And I say this, my institution that I represent, we have salaries in these career fields, in these training fields. This institution has been in our community for over 20 years now.
Wow.
And there's just not a lot of people who've taken advantage of it. And when you don't take advantage of that opportunity, because a lot of the tragedy, even in the aftermath, is not necessarily what you've lost. It's the inability to gain it back.
Yeah.
It's the inability to have the resources necessary, to rebuild or to have the connections and the networks of people to get you back in a place or some standard of living. So those amongst us in our community that are going to fare the worst are those who had no resource in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? And so what I found that we have opportunities to, in this next season of life, we have to make sure we're educated. You got to make sure you add tangible skill to your life, things that can be converted into resource.
Yes.
We really need to flip the script. And instead of working at the dead-end job, let's look at the career that brings us greater opportunity. Yes. Let's look at the business that we probably never started,
right,
and use that as an opportunity to do something. As because we're vying for resources. This is the deal. The truth of it is that we're vying for resources. We need to prepare ourselves in ways that when tragedy does strike, insurance and different things that you said in that manner, we have to be equipped to face the challenge so that we can overcome and get on the other side.
How does LIT help? It's right here in the community. How does LIT help in a situation like this? Just say, for instance, I want to come to LIT. I mean, hurricane, it exposed the job that has I have no opportunity to be elevated or promoted. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. What could LIT do for Hurricane Harvey aftermath?
Well, what I found out is that in our institution, and we're not going to make this everything about them, but it's a resource. We provide degrees for 2-year associate's degrees. Now, that's a minimal investment. I can get on my recruiting spiel.
Please do.
But it's a minimal investment of roughly about $6,000 that you can invest in your education. And we're partnered with industry leaders in our community. Some of those to be mentioned: Exxon Mobil, Motiva, some of the big people, Huntsman, Valero. We teach a specific set of skills that can get you in the petrochemical industry. Actually, there's $30 billion worth of expansion happening in the Golden Triangle area right now. 30 billion in the Golden Triangle.
30 billion.
300 billion along the Gulf Coast itself, all the way from Corpus Christi all the way to Baton Rouge, maybe New Orleans, Louisiana, because we house one of the largest petrochemical industries in the nation, in the world. And so we have to tap into that. We have $30 billion worth of expansion happening in our city. ExxonMobil as a refinery is the largest refinery in America, and it sits right in our backyard. But unfortunately, we don't have a workforce here in our city that's able to benefit a lot from those jobs and those career options. So LIT becomes a diamond in the rough, man, a gold mine in the middle of a barren land to equip people with the skills, with salaries that are very competitive. You know, in some instances, you know, $80,000, $100,000 a year in salary based off your expertise. With median salaries ranging from $48,000 to $50,000 to $60,000.
Coming right out of
school after 2-year investment. So what do we say about that? We have to open our eyes to opportunity. We have to say to ourselves, like Paul did on his way to Damascus, and he met up with the prophet there, and the blinders have to be taken off our eyes. We have to see the opportunities that are in front of us. And there's a moment after tragedy that if you don't take advantage of it, you can sit back into the same mindset of woe is me. There's no opportunity. You know, there's poverty. There's no sense of expansion in the area that I live in, and we're seeing it happen in our city. These next 2 to 3 years are going to be critical.
Yes,
they're going to be critical for us because the help is going to stop. You know what I'm saying? The people are going to stop showing up.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this is a very passionate conversation. What are you going to do when the help stops? What are you going to do when the aid and the assistance stops? Because this doesn't mean, you know, even some resources that we're getting right now, these are not lifetime resources. They're temporary to get you back. So we got to find a way. You know what? Hey, I'll put it like this, and not looking at somebody's situation, but let's say for the situation, your relief has come in the May of food stamps, and everybody's gotten those. You know what I'm saying? The rich and the poor have gotten. We've all been affected. You know, that money that you saved from going to the grocery store, what if we found a way to put some of that back? What if we found a way to put some of that assistance that we're getting? You know, that's the deal about it, man. You know, there are people who need it, then there are people who just got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But even if you just got it, find a way to invest it in something for your life. Find a way to add something to it, you know what I'm saying, and make it a benefit for your life, because it's going to stop. You know, the resources are going to stop, so we got to do something better, man.
I don't want to cut you off, but the way my brain works, you know, we use the Bible as a foundation for our reality. Yeah. I'm thinking about when Jesus met Peter. Peter was fishing with his fleet. There was more than one ship. Mm-hmm. Peter, of course, he experiences the miracle, but he had a skill set.
Yeah.
He had a skill set of fishing. He was not only of fishing, we focus on him being a fisherman, but he also had some type of maritime or nautical ability. Mm-hmm. He knew how to navigate a boat, a ship in sea. Okay, now let me say this. After Jesus, so they walked with Jesus for 3.5 years after he was crucified. All the disciples got together whose jobs now didn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. Matthew could no longer be a tax collector because he'd rocked with Jesus for 3 years and these same people crucified him. Mm-hmm. You get the point what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So Peter was the only one in the group who had a skill after a tragic situation of the cross to go back to. They said, well, Peter, in the book of John 21, they asked Peter, well, what are you going to do now? And he said, I'm going back to fishing. Mm-hmm. I'm going back to my maritime and nautical expertise.
Absolutely.
After a tragedy. And I wanted to bring that out. So LIT prepares us with skills. How does this merge with church? What does church do now, along with people like LIT, in the pursuit of us becoming who we want to be? How do we connect the two? Because I don't want to be so into, I don't want my life to be unbalanced.
Yeah, well, we know this, and we believe that Jesus taught a complete gospel. You know, it's amazing that he didn't go and look for the men that were in the synagogues. You know, he didn't go and look for the most religious other people to rock with him to do what he needed to do. He needed people with skills, ability to go in and out. I think one of the things that we can do as a church, we can help our people become better prepared. We need to embrace education. We need to embrace the complete person. We got to get people involved in the skills and abilities that can better their lives in a reasonable, tangible way. So we have to get on board with that. We have to be more forward in our message because our churches, as a whole, man, we house the majority of the people as congregants. There's no other place. There's no other place during the week, during the world, maybe besides schools, that can call a group of people together every week. Every week. In some places, man, there are thousands of people coming together, man. They're gathering with one purpose. What if we could What if there was some way, to have more intimate or more directed conversation about skills development, about adding, to not only to your moral stature, but your physical stature also. What can we do to help people make real solid foundational decisions for their lives, budgeting, savings, investments, so forth, in a way that, there's something that's very tangible about my faith. And there's no, we can move away from definitely the truth of an expectation as Christ returns and we go back to heaven. But like you preach and like we preached before, we have to do something while we're here on earth. We have to occupy until he comes. Right?
Right.
And the parable of the man with the talents, and when he gave this amount and that amount and that amount, you know what I'm saying? He taught a wisdom principle of occupying and being more engaged in the systems in the community that we serve and that we live in. Sometimes we just wait to get to churches on Sunday, to be engaged and involved, but then we have neighbors that we hadn't even met yet.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? We have people that live on our street that we don't even know. And so we have to create a sense of community, of unity, equipping our folks and in getting them engaged with institutions. I think, and I'm going to give it back to you, one of the greatest tragedies that we should revisit as a church is the separation of state and God and state. And what's happened with that is that, even take, for example, an institution like Lamar, or any college or anything like that, where people are being trained for better lives, there's usually no synergy between the most galvanized group of people in the city.
That's right. Is the church.
The most galvanized groups of people are alienating or being alienated from the institutions and the places that can really create, and the community that we all want to engage in, because our community affects us all, man.
Jesus was criticized because they called Jesus, they didn't give him the respect that he demanded or that he deserved, because they said he eats with publicans. That's not Republicans. No. We ain't going to get into that. But publicans are government representatives.
Yeah.
He eats with publicans and sinners.
Yeah.
He's not spending time so engaged in the temple that he's disconnected from the people that need that spiritual resource and the people that have the natural resource.
Absolutely.
So Jesus combined, by him sitting at a table with a publican and a sinner, I believe he created that synergy that you're talking about. You have your natural, your financial, and your spiritual.
Absolutely.
The people, the government with the resource or ability, and then the spiritual ability.
Yeah.
So how are we going to do that, Chris, in this, our time is going so fast, in this aftermath, how are we going to merge those?
I feel that we have a mission, and I've told you this before in my endeavor, that I focus on my job and the things that I'm doing right now as another evangelistic tool, because I feel there's a gospel, a good message.
A good message.
In equipping yourself for lifelong prosperity.
Right.
To attain a skill, to put your hand. You remember we preached the message that there are three vessels. There are three vessels that God blesses, that he anoints. Oh, man. And it's your head, your heart, and your hands.
Right.
Your head, your heart, and your hands are vessels for God to anoint. If we can think right, in our minds, if we can have the right mentality, if we can feel right and have a consciousness about ourselves that is fruitful, that comes from the heart, from the soul of a man. And if I have, at the end of these appendages on my arm, something that can do a worthy work, you know what I'm saying? I can put my hands to something, I can build something, I can create something. I have a skill that translates, into something that was once non-existent, but because of my hands, and I put it to it, I built something. My brother-in-law passed away about 2 years ago, and we talked about his life. And one of the things that we wrote on this epitaph, on his grave, was, here's the life of a man who chose to build up instead of break down. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And there's representative of that greatness. You know what I'm saying? There's representative, you know what I'm saying, of that greatness when you can put your hands to something.
Yeah.
And when you can build it. So, that it moves me, you know what I'm saying? Because people, we can accomplish wonderful things. I believe in people. I believe that people can do great things, man. You know what I'm saying? No matter where you come from, if you have the tool, you know what I'm saying? If it's in you, if you've taken the time to put it inside of yourself, you can apply that to something, and it will change your life. People are amazing. We're amazing. When God says that I fearfully and I wonderfully made you,
Yes, sir.
I don't think we totally can ascertain the full meaning of that. There's no other person, being, system, whatever entity on this earth like the human being that has been touched and endowed with God's grace.
Wow.
And the freedom of life, you know what I'm saying, to live and to be and to exist is a privilege. It's an honor, you know what I'm saying? If we have to find a way to spend that time most effectively. You know what I'm saying? And I think the acquisition of skill
Yes.
for the building of life,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying, for the propagation of generation, to lay a foundation, to leave something. You know, we're responsible for that. And we gotta, you know, we just gotta bring it upon ourselves, that responsibility.
Yes.
So I think as we talk about, you know, present state of our city and our community with Harvey and even aftermath, you know, I've loved the messages that I've heard, you know, of rebuilding and 409 strong and Golden Triangle strong and Texas strong, because right now there's a resilience in the air that
Yes.
we gotta get in it.
We gotta
Yeah.
channel it.
We need to channel it, man.
Yeah.
There's a resilience. There's some people that are rebuilding right now.
Yes.
There's a spirit of intense fortitude that's floating around in our environment that may not be here again. We don't know the next time. You know, one of the things that our city is prized for is Boomtown, Spindletop, resilience, where we took something out of the ground. People did. We did it.
Yeah.
We took it out of the ground, man, and we created something, a system, an economy. Right now, I feel that we're on the precipice of that again. We have to take this opportunity inside of ourselves, grab hold to resilience that's in the air, and really, really press through the hard times. It's hard right now. We got to press through it, and I think we can overcome.
I'm sitting here thinking in the book of Genesis, there was two brothers, not Cain and Abel, but there was two brothers who they were sitting in a session like this, and one of the brothers said, let's make some bricks. And they said, what's a brick? He said, we're going to take this mud, we're going to mix some straw with it, we're going to make it hard. And then the other brother said, well, what are we going to do with the brick? He said, we'll build us a city. They accomplished it. Two brothers, or the Bible calls them neighbors. After they built the city, they said, wow, look at what we did. We can build a tower all the way to heaven. And in the usage of their hands, the usage of their mind, and the usage of their heart, it got God's attention. And God said, let me come down to see what they're doing.
Yeah.
He confused their languages not to punish them, but to spread that mindset around the world.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So what I want to do, Chris, in these last few moments, I want you to give us some love words to everybody that's listening, brother to brother audience. Give us some love words to take us home.
And this is especially for our audience here in Beaumont. Be resilient. Stick in there. Stay in there. Resolve. Work. God is with us. He can rebuild us. God bless you.
Here we go. Come on. Say my faith is stronger than it's ever been before, and I will forever